Now then, you lovely people, on a windswept beach. In this lovely episode, we will be investigating pan and all things stereo field. Let's get the rock on! So, let's get the rock on with introducing pan. Don't forget, hit the subscribe button down the bottom, which would be wonderful. And then when you've done that, ding the bell. In fact, the belly button. Don't think I'll get sick of saying that. Right, what I would suggest, get a pen, a bit of paper, watch this right through, take a couple of rough notes, and watch it through again. Maybe have a play along with your own DAW, and make some notes as you go through the second time. It's important that you make notes so you can remember what I've been blathering on about. So, in the past, sounds like I've done hundreds of these. In the last video, we just talked about balance and blend. How do we get all the instruments to blend and fit in a mix? And fundamentally, that was just using the faders. Today, we'll be looking at the use of the stereo field, and does the mix use the whole of the stereo field? Next will be the management of EQ, then management of dynamics and dynamic processing, then the use of effects, specifically time-based effects, and how we use these in good old Cubase. So are we using them as an insert or a send? Then we'll be looking at depth of field. Really, this harks back to when you're recording, but we can also use reverb and time-based effects to place different effects and different instruments within the depth of field that we're listening to. Presentation and production. That'll finish off our lovely little series, and what we'll fundamentally be looking at there is the overall production of what we've done and how to present it to someone. So the fade in, the fade out. Is there a big gap at the beginning? Does it need a little fade at the beginning? Does it need a big fade at the end? Is it the right level? So, mono versus stereo. Well, not really mono versus stereo, because that'd be kind of like a big fight thing, and it's not a big fight thing at all. Mono recording fundamentally uses one channel, generally recorded, captured with one mic, goes down one input channel, recorded onto one track, one channel of your DAW. However, when you play it back, you can play it back through two speakers, and when you play it back through two speakers, if you keep the pan control right in the middle, you'll get the same mono energy out of both speakers, both sides of the speakers, but it'll be identical. We can pan the signal off this channel to the left or the right hand side, but it would still only be a mono sound source. We can use this mono signal to help us set our monitoring environment up, so make sure we're in that equilateral triangle. Our heads here, bonk, and what we're looking for is what we call a ghost image. Near where your computer monitor will be, the centre of that. We want to make sure that we're in that equilateral triangle, and we just adjust the levels of the actual speakers till we got this mono imaging, and we'll be all set up lovely. So, as I mentioned earlier, we can pan this mono signal left or right. So if we'd recorded a guitar, we could pan the guitar over at the left hand side or pan it over at the right hand side and leave some space for something else over the other side, like maybe another guitar. So a little recap. One mic gives you mono. Now, two channels are needed to create stereo, or what we call a stereo interleave file in this day and age when we're listening back. All your cassettes, all your CDs, all your vinyl, the majority of them was stereo. Some were mono, you can get many mono cassettes, but there will be some mono cassettes out there. And basically, to do a proper acoustic stereo recording, we require 2 microphones. To be honest, it's another can of worms, and we'll cover that later on. So, our ears are basically 2 omnidirectional mics, together panned hard left and right. And the whole idea of these developed from when we was cavemen and cave girls running away from big saber-toothed tigers, so we could kind of hear where they were coming from, and it gives us that sense of being able to locate sound. Quick slurp of tea. Rington's excellent. So let's have a look at some of these where we would normally pan stuff. There aren't any rights or wrongs with this. You just got to look at what the Beatles were doing early on, panning whole drum kits to one side. But these are what were just general conventions. So kick drum right down the middle, or maybe just over a little bit to one side. Snare drum over a little bit to the other side. The toms will be panned in the stereo field. I think this is a good point actually to mention. Where you look at the toms, literally look at the toms in the stereo field, there's 2 schools of thought here. You could have the player's perspective, so you could look at, you were the drummer, and you would pan them how the drummer would be hitting the toms in the stereo field. Or you could look at audience perspective. So the audience perspective generally is like kind of how we do it in the UK and the way that I've done it all along. So your hat and ride, what I would tend to do is I would pop the overheads up first, make sure they're in the stereo field where we want them, and you can hear where the hat and ride are in the stereo field. Then I'd add the hat and ride in to kind of support and enhance what's going on with the overheads. A lot of it depends on the genre of music that you're doing. Bass guitar right down the middle. Guitars, we could be really extreme here depending on how many guitars that we've got. A lot of heavy metal, at least 2 guitars and a big gap in the middle for the solo. We could have 3 guitars, left, right, and a centre support guitar. We could get into quad track guitars where we have the same thing played twice on either side. Really, you know, the world is your oyster with guitars. Lead vocals, bang down the middle. As far as backing vocals go, I like to position the backing vocals of, as I'm doing this from audience perspective, I like to look at where the performers are if they were gigging. So if we have Guitar Boy over here playing guitar and singing, I would pan that over there with where his guitar would be. Bass player, even though the bass is is central, I would pan the bass vocal over where he would be stood on the stage. Unless he's lead vocalist, then he would go in the middle. Keyboards are generally a stereo instrument, so they would take up a big chunk of the stereo field. We've got to be careful of them when we're working with them. So what does this look like? Another slurp of tea. Rington's classic. With my Venom beer mat. Right, let's have a look where we would start with this. Just a couple of little pointers when we're going to do a mix. I'm in Cubase, as most of the recordings that I'm presenting here, and the tips that you really should be learning to mix in Cubase, I suppose. What I want to do first is I just want to have a look at where all our faders are. Now, I know there aren't any inserts or EQ or anything, but if we wanted to reset this right back to the beginning, we can see we've got meters all over the joint here. The pans all over the joint and the faders all over the joint. Just pop up F3, and what we can do when we hit F3, I'm just using G and H to zoom in and out there. Pop up to here, and I'm going to hit reset mix control channels, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset everything. There's a reset. Now what we may have to do here is make sure that we've got our stereo out because sometimes it might even bin off where your stereo out's going. Right, we can see everything's reset to 0. What I want to do now is just make the whole project a little bit easier to work with. So the first thing I'm going to do is colour these tracks. I generally, my backing vocals I've always done kind of blue. Some of the projects I'm working on at the moment, I'm seeing like different colour schemes and things, and it's like I could really do with there's like, it's like a purple or violet, V for violet vocal. I don't have anything complicated going on. Guitars are green, another guitar green. Depending on what the guitar was, I do a different shade of green. Bass is blue. You might be wondering why I'm going up. I'll show you what happens when you go down. If I hit the red for my drums, you've got to cancel that and go back in. So I do like a little bit of time saving. And all we're doing here is we're making the mix a little bit easier to work with visually. Some people like all the colours and things, and I've labelled everything up appropriately. I've even bunged on what microphones they are, which brings me to another lovely little thing. I'm making these files available for you to mix with and do things. The recordings, Susie's a Rich Girl, by a band called the Ryots. I'll put the link to their SoundCloud, not SoundCloud, their Spotify page. They probably have a SoundCloud as well, but they are no longer. The singer disappeared off over to Australia. Oh, lovely bunch of lads. So before we go anywhere, let's have a quick look at what the song sounds like. So I'm just going to roll from the top.
Surely she won't leave you, surely she won't go. Richie was a showman, rich man, don't you know? Had a plan to marry white cheap event. Susie stole a rich man, ran off with your end.
Right, in the last video we looked at just getting a simple balance. So the guitars need to come down. Don't be turning stuff up because you just end up with everything super loud. Now for me the overheads are quite loud as well. They're sounding quite it's making everything sound quite roomy, so just back a little bit.
Susie stole a rich man, ran off with your end. Hope they always need you when you come.
Guitars are still a little bit loud. Pull them down.
Please not to believe you when you fall.
Let's have a listen at the back end with these backing vocals.
Last work, we thank you for our time. Truth or distant memory, there's only now a rhyme.
We can hear that the whole mix is bunched in the middle. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add some pan to the mix. So I'm just going to mute everything but the drums so we can hear the drum kit working as one instrument. There's a 715 from Guatemala flying over. It's the joys of living on a flight path. Wouldn't need that if a noisy metal band was making a row. We have to listen out for the dog as well. He's just come back from a walk and he's all hyper excited, but I'm sure I'll introduce you to him at some point. A couple of shortcuts for you there. Well, what I've done there is if I move this left locator, Control 1, I can put one side of the little loop thing here, and the loop thing coming on or off we can turn off down the bottom here, where you can I haven't got the thing. I've just put another update on Cubase and you've got to load all your preferences back in or hit my preference button, but there we go, I didn't do it. So next to the number lock on the numeric keypad there's a little / that also does the same. So setting the right hand side is the same way as we set the left, just we hit Control 2. What else is cool is if we hit the 1 on the numeric keypad it takes us to that side, 2 to that side. So let's have a little listen to this kit while the kit's playing. We've got everything else muted. That's what that little M is here. We're not soloing in this instance. We'll try not to solo stuff too much. You can hear that hat and the tom. So what we're going to do first is we're just going to pan the overheads. Let's have a listen to that now. You can hear the ride cymbal there as well. So it's that hat again at the beginning. So you can see we placed the hat over there. It's a little bit far over actually. Nice, some nice hat work on this. That when we get there. Playing with EQ. That's okay. Snare's a little bit low. Rather than alter any of our levels here, we can see that the snare's a little bit low here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to increase the clip gain. We do that by going up the volume here. I'll just hit 3 dB. That's quite a lot actually. So let's go back to the There's quite a lot of low end noise going on. We'll address that when we get to EQ. So there's our drums done. Let's have a quick mute of these. And then let's have a look at our guitars. So go back to the beginning. So we can hear one of the guitars is playing while the whole track's goes into this kind of quiet bit. Yeah, and the vocal in. That's cool. So I'm quite happy with that. If we hit this M right up the top, it'll just unmute everything. So let's see where we're going.
There's no doubt that Susie's eating oysters, living off your clout. Won't they always need you when you go out? Please not to believe you when you fall. Parents are excited, greet you down the aisle. Susie is a rich.
That's not so bad. Let's have a listen at the end with these backing vocals. We've altered the level, remember?
Stolen all our heart's work. We thank you for our time. The truth or distant memory that's only now a rhyme. We shy not to believe it, but proud of what I know. Susie was a rich girl, but riots come and go. Hope you always need us when you go out. Please.
Right, cool. I think that's a decent point for us to do a pause with this, and the next thing we will be looking at will be EQ. Just before we go there, we need to go File, Save As, and then we've got a couple of little mix things here where I've been faffing on with it. So we will be now mix. So we've got Mix 01, Mix 02, Mix 1. These are where the I've brought in Cubase. I'll do backups for you. Now if I click on here, oh, it's not showing me because I'm saving. We'll call that 03. I'll show you how to put this auto save thing on. File, Allied, Project, Allied again. So I'll unlie and I'll go to Preferences, go on to General, maximum backup files 5, and it's going to back up every 10 minutes with the auto save. So that's a cool little trick to know that's there. So if I looked in the folder, we'd have a handful of backup files. I try not to keep too many Cubase projects and backup projects in a working folder. So each of these would be, we got our basic balance on the first mix, save that. That would be 01. Then we do our colouring, our pan, and all the other bits that go with it. So as we said at the beginning, hit the subscribe button, hit the belly button, and quick review of what we've covered today. What's the most important thing that you can take away from this today? Is it where things are placed in the stereo field, or is it a couple of the shortcuts? What questions do you have from today's video? Hit the comments below. What do you want to know next? Hit the comments below. Have fun. Your work here is done. Have a tremendous rest of your lunar cycle of 1 day in 24 hours. Till next time. Missing you already!